Welcome back to the Sleepy Stoic Sanctuary, where ancient tales illuminate the eternal tensions between human ambition and divine wisdom. Tonight, we explore one of Greece's most profound and heartbreaking stories, the tale of Daedalus, master craftsman whose creative genius soared beyond all limits, and his beloved son Icarus, whose youth and joy led him to forget the wisdom that could have saved his life. This is a story about the double-edged sword of innovation, the responsibility that comes with great skill, and the devastating consequences when pride in achievement blinds us to prudent limitations. Daedalus stands in his workshop on the island of Crete, surrounded by mechanical marvels that seem to blur the line between human craftsmanship and divine creation. Moving statues that appear alive, intricate puzzles that challenge the greatest minds, weapons of unprecedented precision, and architectural innovations that defy conventional understanding. His name has become synonymous with ingenious invention, his reputation spreading across the Mediterranean as the master who can solve any technical challenge, create any marvel that imagination can conceive. But tonight's tale reminds us that every great strength contains within it the seeds of potential destruction. The same brilliant innovation that makes Daedalus the most celebrated craftsman in the ancient world will soon trap him in circumstances where creativity becomes both salvation and doom. The Father's genius will provide escape from physical imprisonment, but it cannot protect against the intoxication of success or the young heart's tendency to mistake joy for wisdom. You who struggle with ambition and achievement, who navigate the tensions between reaching higher and staying grounded, who balance creative drive with practical wisdom, settle into your bed and prepare to learn from a father's love, a son's enthusiasm, and the tragic beauty of flight that soars too close to the sun. Close your eyes and let the ancient wisdom about pride, innovation, and the delicate balance between reaching for greatness and respecting natural limits begin. Take 3 balanced breaths with me now, breathing in the wisdom of measured achievement and breathing out the restlessness that comes from wanting to reach too far, too fast. In through your nose, feeling the steady confidence that comes from knowing your limits. Hold for a moment in perfect balance and release slowly through your mouth, letting go of any desperate need to prove yourself beyond prudent boundaries. Feel your body settling into natural equilibrium like a craftsman who has learned to balance creative ambition with practical wisdom. Your shoulders drop away from your ears, releasing the tension that comes from constantly pushing beyond safe limits. Your jaw relaxes, your forehead smooths, and your eyes grow heavy with the approach of balanced understanding. Like Daedalus learning that even the greatest skill requires humility before natural law, let your mind prepare for wisdom about finding the middle path between achievement and prudence. Starting from the crown of your head, imagine a gentle, balancing light beginning to flow down through your body. This is the light of measured wisdom, the same illumination that guides those who achieve greatness while respecting the boundaries that keep achievement from becoming destruction. Feel this balancing light flowing down your forehead, relaxing every muscle in your face, preparing you to receive ancient wisdom about the delicate art of soaring high while staying grounded, of innovating boldly while listening to the voice of experience, of pursuing excellence while maintaining the humility that keeps pride from leading to devastating falls. A balancing light moves steadily down your neck and shoulders, releasing all tension from trying to achieve too much too quickly, or from holding back when action is appropriate. Your arms grow heavy and relaxed, sinking deeper into the mattress, like a wise craftsman setting down tools after a day of measured, excellent work. Your chest rises and falls in a natural, balanced rhythm. Each breath brings you deeper into harmonious tranquility. Feel the warm light flowing down through your torso with the patience of balanced achievement, relaxing your back, your abdomen, releasing any stress from the internal conflict between ambition and caution. You are safe here in this moment of perfect equilibrium. You are protected by the wisdom of those who have learned to pursue excellence while respecting the natural limits that keep success from becoming tragedy. The light continues its measured journey down through your hips and thighs, warming every muscle, encouraging complete relaxation, like someone who has learned to fly high while keeping feet firmly connected to solid ground. Your legs grow heavy, sinking into the bed as if they're resting after a journey that honored both the desire to explore and the wisdom to return safely home. Down through your calves and feet, the balancing light completes its harmonious journey, leaving you completely relaxed, completely at peace, completely ready to learn how the middle path between extremes offers the truest form of greatness, and how humility preserves the achievements that pride would destroy. Your mind grows quiet and receptively balanced, like a student preparing to learn from both triumph and tragedy, from both the heights of achievement and the wisdom that comes through loss. Like Daedalus, discovering that even the greatest innovations require humility before natural law. You are ready for whatever balanced wisdom this ancient tale of flight and fall will bring to your understanding. You are grounded in this moment of harmonious peace. yet open to the adventures that await in the realm of creative ambition, guided by practical wisdom. You are safe, you are calm, you are ready to learn from the master craftsman's brilliance and the young heart's enthusiasm. From the Father's protective love and the Son's joyful courage. From the triumph of innovation and the tragedy of pride. Your breathing deepens with the rhythm of balanced achievement. Ambitious enough to reach for greatness. Wise enough to respect the boundaries that keep greatness from becoming destruction. Like a student preparing to receive hard-won wisdom about the delicate art of soaring high while staying humble. You are ready for the tale of wings that carry both salvation and sorrow. Breathe deeply and let the story of the Master and his Son, of innovation and consequence, of love that seeks to protect and youth that seeks to fly, begin to unfold with all its beauty and heartbreak. King Minos of Crete approaches Daedalus with a commission that would challenge even the master craftsman's legendary ingenuity. Design and construct a labyrinth so complex, so bewildering, that no one who enters it could ever find their way out without divine guidance. The purpose is both practical and terrible: to contain the Minotaur, the monstrous offspring of divine punishment, in a prison that would be as inescapable as it was architecturally magnificent. For most craftsmen, such a project would inspire terror or humble refusal. The technical challenges seem insurmountable, creating a structure vast enough to contain a monster, complex enough to confuse even intelligent navigation, yet stable enough to endure for generations. But Daedalus feels only exhilaration at the intellectual puzzle presented. His mind immediately begins calculating angles, passages, dead ends, and the mathematical precision required to create navigational impossibility. The commission appeals not just to his technical skill, but to his deepest creative pride. Here is a chance to create something that has never existed before, to push the boundaries of architectural possibility, to demonstrate that human ingenuity can accomplish what seems impossible. The labyrinth will become his masterpiece, a testament to innovation that will be spoken of for centuries as the ultimate expression of craftsmanship. Working with passionate intensity, Daedalus designs passages that double back on themselves, corridors that seem to lead toward the center but circle endlessly away from it, chambers that appear identical but differ in crucial details that only the architect understands. The mathematical precision required approaches the divine, every angle calculated to create maximum confusion, every turn designed to destroy the visitor's sense of direction and progress. The completed labyrinth exceeds even King Minos's expectations. It is a marvel of engineering and psychology, a structure that seems to possess its own malevolent intelligence in its ability to trap and confuse. Daedalus stands before his creation with justifiable pride, knowing he has achieved something that no other craftsman could conceive, let alone execute. But in his satisfaction with solving the impossible problem, he cannot foresee how his own brilliant solution will soon become the source of his greatest trial. When Theseus emerges from the labyrinth, carrying Ariadne's thread and the head of the slain Minotaur, Daedalus experiences something he has never felt before: the complex emotions of watching his greatest creation defeated by love, courage, and clever strategy. The young hero's success represents both a validation of human ingenuity. The thread strategy acknowledges the labyrinth's effectiveness, and a profound moral challenge to everything the master craftsman has assumed about his work. For the first time, Daedalus must confront the full implications of his creative brilliance. He had focused entirely on the technical challenge of creating an inescapable prison, taking pride in the mathematical precision and architectural innovation required. But Theseus's triumph forces him to see his labyrinth through different eyes, not just as a masterpiece of engineering, but as a structure designed to ensure that brave young people would die lost and terrified, unable to return to their families and communities. The thread that guides Theseus to safety becomes a metaphor that haunts the master craftsman. Love and wisdom, represented by Ariadne's assistants, can overcome even the most sophisticated technical obstacles when they serve justice rather than tyranny. The very brilliance that Daedalus brought to solving King Minos' problem now reveals itself as brilliance misapplied, innovation without moral consideration, craftsmanship serving purposes that no ethical creator should support. King Minos' rage at the labyrinth's defeat focuses entirely on Daedalus as the architect responsible for its failure. The king cannot accept that love and courage might legitimately overcome tyranny and fear. Instead, he sees only technical betrayal, design flaws that allowed escape from what should have been certain death. In his fury, Minos concludes that if the labyrinth cannot contain its intended victims, then it will contain its creator. Daedalus realizes too late that accepting commissions without considering their moral implications leads inevitably to circumstances where the creator becomes victim of his own innovations. The genius that solved King Minos' problem has created a new problem that only greater genius or greater wisdom can solve. But this time, the stakes include not just professional reputation, but the life and safety of his beloved son Icarus. The tower where King Minos imprisons Daedalus and Icarus rises high above the Cretan coast, its windows offering a magnificent view of the Mediterranean Sea that stretches endlessly toward horizons that represent freedom just beyond reach. Here, in forced confinement, the relationship between father and son deepens through shared adversity and the intimate collaboration required for planning their escape. Icarus, young and resilient, adapts to their imprisonment with the flexibility of youth, finding wonder even in their confined circumstances. He listens with fascination as his father explains the principles of engineering, mathematics, and innovation that have made the Daedalus name legendary throughout the ancient world. The tower becomes an intimate classroom where practical knowledge mingles with paternal love and protection. For Daedalus, watching his son's curiosity and intelligence develop under such circumstances brings both joy and profound motivation. The master craftsman, who once worked primarily for reputation and the satisfaction of solving complex problems, now has the most important project of his career: ensuring his child's freedom and safety. Every plan he considers must account not just for technical feasibility, but for the protection of someone he loves more than his own life. Together, they study the patterns of wind and weather, observing how birds navigate the air currents around their tower. Icarus delights in these observations, his young mind quick to grasp the principles of flight that his father explains with patient detail. The son's enthusiasm and natural intelligence give the father hope that their shared escape will succeed through collaboration rather than individual brilliance alone. In the quiet evenings, as they plan their freedom, Daedalus finds himself thinking less about the innovations that brought them to this predicament and more about the responsibility he bears for his son's future. The tower that confines them also clarifies priorities that success and reputation had previously obscured. For the first time in his career, the master craftsman's greatest creation will be designed not to impress others or solve impossible problems, but simply to carry two people safely home. The love between father and son becomes the true inspiration for the innovation that will either save them both or destroy them through the very boldness it requires. In the months of their confinement, Daedalus applies his legendary ingenuity to the most challenging design problem he has ever faced, creating the means for human flight using only the materials available within their tower prison. This requires innovation that approaches divine mimicry, attempting to accomplish what has been reserved for gods and mythical creatures since the beginning of time. Working with meticulous precision, the master craftsman collects feathers from the seabirds that nest around their tower, studying their structure and aerodynamic properties with the focused intensity that has made him famous throughout the Mediterranean. He observes how different feather types contribute to lift and control, how their arrangement creates the perfect balance between strength and flexibility required for sustained flight. The binding agent comes from beeswax, carefully warmed and applied to attach each feather in the precise position that will maximize aerodynamic efficiency. Daedalus creates a framework that mimics the bone and muscle structure of bird wings while adapting to human shoulders and arm strength. The engineering requires mathematical calculation of weight distribution, air resistance, and the energy output that human muscles can sustain during extended flight. Icarus watches his father's work with fascination and growing excitement, helping to collect materials and learning the principles behind each design decision. The young man's enthusiasm for the project delights his father, while also creating a subtle concern. The son's eagerness sometimes seems to overlook the inherent dangers of their planned escape in favor of the thrilling prospect of actual human flight. As the wings near completion, they represent the pinnacle of Daedalus's creative achievement. More complex than the Labyrinth, more ambitious than any previous innovation, these wings embody the dream of transcending human limitations through applied intelligence and craftsmanship. Yet they also represent something unprecedented in the master craftsman's career. Innovation created not for demonstration or commission, but purely for the practical purpose of saving lives. The completed wings are marvels of engineering that blur the line between human craft and divine capability. As Daedalus straps them to his own shoulders for initial testing, both father and son understand they are about to attempt something that will either prove human ingenuity can overcome any obstacle, or demonstrate that some boundaries should not be crossed, regardless of technical ability. Before they attempt their escape, Daedalus gathers his son for the most important conversation of their lives, a father's urgent transmission of wisdom that could mean the difference between freedom and tragedy. The master craftsman understands that technical innovation alone cannot ensure safety. Success will require not just engineering excellence, but disciplined adherence to the limitations that make flight possible. Icarus, my beloved son, Daedalus begins, his voice carrying the weight of both profound love and serious concern. These wings will carry us to freedom, but only if we respect the natural laws that govern their function. Listen carefully to what I tell you now, for your life depends on understanding not just how to fly, but how to fly safely. The father explains the critical balance required for sustained flight. You must fly neither too high nor too low. If you fly too low, the sea spray will dampen the feathers and add weight that will drag you down into the waves. If you fly too high, the heat of the sun will melt the wax that holds our wings together, and you will fall from the sky like a stone. With gentle but insistent instruction, Daedalus demonstrates the wing movements that will provide lift and control, the body positioning that will maximize efficiency while minimizing fatigue, and the mental discipline required to maintain steady progress toward their destination, rather than being tempted by the exhilaration of flight itself. The middle path, he emphasizes, is always the safest path. Stay close to me, follow my lead, and resist any temptation to explore the limits of what these wings can accomplish. We are not gods, son. We are men using tools to accomplish what nature did not design us to do. Humility and discipline will carry us home safely. Icarus listens attentively, nodding his understanding and promising to follow his father's guidance exactly. His young face shows both comprehension of the instructions and barely contained excitement about the adventure ahead. The father sees both responses in his son's expression and feels the complex emotions of protective love mixed with necessary trust. As they prepare for departure, Daedalus offers one final reminder. Remember, our goal is not to prove how high we can fly or how clever we are. Our goal is simply to reach safety together. Everything else is vanity that could cost us everything. As dawn breaks over the Mediterranean, father and son launch themselves from their tower prison with wings that immediately prove the excellence of Daedalus's engineering. The careful calculations translate perfectly into sustained flight. The wing movements feel natural and powerful, and the sensation of soaring free above the sea brings joy that seems to justify every risk they have taken to achieve this moment. Flying in careful formation, with Icarus following his father's steady pace and trajectory, they make remarkable progress away from Crete toward the distant mainland that represents freedom and safety. The wings respond exactly as designed, providing lift without excessive strain, maneuverability without instability, and the endurance needed for their long journey home. For Daedalus, the successful flight represents vindication of his innovative approach to seemingly impossible problems. The same creative intelligence that designed the Labyrinth has now accomplished something even more challenging, enabling human beings to accomplish what had previously been reserved for gods and mythical creatures. Yet his satisfaction remains tempered by constant awareness of the dangers that require continued vigilance and discipline. Icarus experiences flight with the pure joy of youth encountering wonder beyond anything previously imagined. The sensation of moving through air with the freedom of birds, of seeing the world spread out below in patterns that reveal the beauty of creation from a divine perspective, fills him with exhilaration that makes their previous confinement seem like a distant nightmare. The father watches his son's delight with complex emotions: happiness at seeing the young man's joy, pride in the innovation that has made this escape possible, but also growing concern as he notices Icarus beginning to experiment with wing movements that go beyond the careful techniques they had practiced in the tower. For the first part of their journey, discipline and caution govern their flight. They maintain the middle altitude that avoids both sea spray and excessive solar heat. They follow the steady pace that conserves energy for the long distance ahead, and they stay close enough together for communication and mutual support. But as the miles pass and confidence in their wings grows, the father begins to see in his son's flight patterns the first signs of the pride and exuberance that could transform their carefully planned escape into the greatest tragedy of both their lives. As their flight progresses and the wings continue to perform flawlessly, Icarus begins to feel the intoxicating confidence that comes from mastering a skill that no human being has ever possessed before. The initial careful adherence to his father's instructions gradually gives way to experimental movements, exploratory climbs, and the natural desire of youth to test the limits of newly discovered abilities. The young man's flight becomes a dance of increasing boldness. He tries steeper climbs, sharper turns, brief moments of soaring higher than the prescribed safe altitude. Each successful maneuver builds his confidence that the warnings his father gave were perhaps overly cautious, the product of an older generation's tendency toward excessive prudence rather than necessary safety measures. From Icarus's perspective, the flight feels so natural, so perfectly controlled, that it seems impossible anything could go wrong. The wings respond to his every command. The air currents support his weight and direction changes with ease, and the sensation of flight itself fills him with such joy that caution begins to feel like unnecessary limitation rather than wise protection. The beauty of the world, seen from the air, contributes to his growing sense of invincibility. Below them, the Mediterranean spreads out in patterns of blue and gold that no earthbound person has ever witnessed. Islands appear like jewels scattered across silk. Ships look like toys in a vast bath, and the coastlines reveal geological artistry that can only be appreciated from the perspective of gods and eagles. Daedalus watches his son's increasingly bold flight patterns with growing alarm. He calls out reminders about maintaining safe altitude and steady pace, but his voice seems small against the vast sky, and Icarus appears to interpret these warnings as suggestions rather than essential instructions for survival. The father faces a dilemma that every parent of adventurous children understands: how to protect someone you love from dangers they are too young or too confident to fully appreciate. His engineering mind calculates the increasing risks that Icarus's experimentation creates, but his heart struggles with the desire to allow his son to experience the full joy and freedom that their escape has made possible. As they continue their journey, the father realizes that technical innovation has solved only half their challenge. The wings work perfectly, but human nature, youth's tendency toward overconfidence, and the intoxication that comes from newfound power presents a danger that no engineering can prevent. Emboldened by his mastery of flight and intoxicated by the sheer joy of soaring through the heavens, Icarus begins a climb that will take him far beyond the safe altitude his father prescribed. The young man feels drawn upward by a combination of curiosity, confidence, and the irresistible desire to see how close to the realm of the gods his newly acquired wings can carry him. The higher he climbs, the more magnificent the view becomes, and the more invincible he feels. The concerns his father expressed seem distant and overly cautious compared to the reality of wings that continue to function perfectly despite exceeding every limitation that had been suggested. From this height, the sea below looks like a jeweled mirror, and Icarus feels as though he has transcended the ordinary boundaries of human existence. But the sun's heat, pleasant and warming at moderate altitude, becomes increasingly intense as he soars higher. What had been a gentle warmth begins to feel like the breath of divine fire, and the carefully applied wax that holds his wing feathers in precise aerodynamic position starts to soften under temperatures it was never designed to withstand. The first drops of melted wax fall like tears into the sea below. But Icarus, drunk upon the sensation of unprecedented height and freedom, does not notice the beginning of his wings' destruction. His attention remains fixed on the ever-expanding horizon, on the intoxicating sensation of approaching the solar chariot itself, on the pride of achieving what no human being has ever accomplished. Below him, Daedalus watches with the horror of someone who understands exactly what is happening, but possesses no power to prevent it. The master craftsman's voice cracks as he calls out warnings that cannot compete with the wind and distance, pleading with his son to descend immediately, to remember the wisdom that love had tried to teach. As more wax melts and feathers begin to loosen from their carefully engineered positions, Icarus finally notices the deterioration of his wings. But the realization comes too late. He is too high for a controlled descent, too far from his father for assistance, and too proud to accept that his confidence has led him into circumstances where all the engineering genius in the world cannot save him from the consequences of ignoring prudent limitations. The moment of recognition that wisdom ignored becomes tragedy inevitable lasts only seconds before the wings fail completely. The fall happens with the terrible swiftness of all tragedies that result from wisdom ignored and limitations scorned. As the melted wax releases the feathers that had provided lift and control, Icarus plummets toward the Mediterranean with only his arms to break a fall that no human strength can survive. The wings that had carried him higher than any mortal had ever flown now become useless debris scattered across the sky. Daedalus, witnessing his son's fall with the helpless anguish that only a parent can understand, abandons all his own safety protocols in a desperate attempt to reach Icarus before the sea claims him. The master craftsman dives with reckless speed, pushing his own wings beyond their design limits, driven by love that refuses to accept the inevitable, even when engineering logic makes survival impossible. But the distance is too great, the fall too swift, and even the genius that created human flight cannot overcome the mathematics of gravity and time. Daedalus reaches the spot where his son struck the water, only to find floating feathers and ripples that mark the end of young life, cut short by the deadly combination of pride and ignored wisdom. The father's grief transcends anything his brilliant mind has ever been forced to process. All his innovations, all his legendary problem-solving abilities, all his mastery of technical challenges prove utterly useless against the simple fact that love cannot retrieve what pride has destroyed. The very wings that enabled their escape have become the instrument of loss that makes freedom meaningless. Floating on the waves with the remnants of wings that now feel like monuments to his own failure, Daedalus experiences the crushing recognition that his greatest innovation has led to his greatest tragedy. The engineering triumph that should have saved both father and son has instead demonstrated that technical capability without wisdom, achievement without humility, and innovation without respect for natural limitations can transform blessing into curse. The sea that surrounds him reflects not only his image, but the image of every parent who has watched talent and potential destroyed by youth's inability to accept the boundaries that experience recognizes as essential. In the floating feathers and the endless waves, Daedalus sees the eternal tension between the desire to soar and the wisdom to stay safely grounded in respect for forces greater than human ambition. The rescue has become a funeral. The escape has become a tragedy. And the master craftsman must somehow find the strength to continue flying toward a freedom that no longer holds any meaning. The remainder of Daedalus's flight unfolds as a journey of profound transformation, a passage through grief that forces the master craftsman to confront the deeper implications of innovation without wisdom, ambition without humility, and achievement without regard for the natural limitations that govern even the most brilliant human capabilities. Flying alone through air that now feels empty of the joy and companionship that had made flight meaningful. Daedalus reflects on the complex relationship between creative genius and moral responsibility. His wings had worked exactly as designed. The engineering was flawless, the innovation genuine, the execution perfect. Yet the very success of his technical achievement had created circumstances where human nature, rather than technical failure, became the source of tragedy. The father's grief transforms into a deeper understanding of the craftsman's responsibility that extends beyond mere technical competence, to include consideration of how innovations will be used, what human weaknesses they might exploit, and what unintended consequences might flow from capabilities that transcend previous limitations. Excellence in execution cannot compensate for inadequate reflection on the broader implications of what we create. As the coastline of safety finally appears ahead, Daedalus realizes that he will never again approach innovation with the purely technical focus that had characterized his previous work. Every future project will carry the weight of understanding that human creations inevitably interact with human nature in ways that pure engineering cannot predict or control. The loss of Icarus represents not just personal tragedy, but professional awakening to the broader responsibilities that come with exceptional capability. The master craftsman who had previously taken pride in solving any technical problem now understands that some problems should not be solved without deep consideration of whether the solutions will serve human flourishing or merely demonstrate human cleverness. Landing safely but alone on the mainland that had promised freedom for both father and son, Daedalus carries within him a new form of wisdom that will guide every remaining innovation. The recognition that true mastery includes not just the ability to create what seems impossible, but the wisdom to consider whether what can be created should be created, and if so, how to create it in ways that honor both human potential and human limitations. The price of this wisdom, his son's life, ensures that it will never be forgotten or ignored in future work. As the Father's wings finally bring him to solid ground, you too can rest in the profound wisdom that emerges from understanding the delicate balance between ambition and humility, between reaching for greatness and respecting the boundaries that keep achievement from becoming destruction. The tale of Daedalus and Icarus reminds us that every innovation, every achievement, every moment of soaring success carries within it both the potential for magnificent triumph and the seeds of tragic consequence. The difference lies not in the quality of our wings, but in the wisdom with which we use them. Let the Father's love and the Son's enthusiasm become teachers for your own life. Let Daedalus's protective warnings guide your approach to ambitious undertakings. Let Icarus's joy remind you that youth and confidence, while beautiful, require the tempering influence of experienced wisdom to avoid the melting point where pride dissolves prudence. Sleep now with the understanding that true greatness lies not in flying higher than anyone else, but in flying wisely within the limits that ensure both achievement and safe return. Rest in the knowledge that the middle path between extremes offers the most sustainable form of excellence, and that humility preserves the accomplishments that pride would destroy. Rest well, balanced achiever. Rest deep, humble innovator. Rest in the eternal peace of wisdom that honors both human potential and human limitations.